Okay, welcome to the fire weather briefing for July 16th, 2025. Got myself, Jeremy, in Spokane, Matthew over in Seattle, and this meeting is being recorded. By joining and participating in this session, consent is being given to the recording. Please keep cameras off per NOAA Privacy Act statement. So looking at the next 7 days, I will start on the east side here. And we do have some elevated concerns Thursday through Sunday. And Friday will actually be locally critical, and I will show you that here in a little bit. But basically, we just have winds to contend with through the weekend on the east side. And then as we head into early next week, we actually have a chance for seeing some showers and wet thunderstorms across the north on Monday, and then spreading down to more of the area on Tuesday. All right, now I'll pass it over to Matthew to talk about the west side.
Thank you. Yeah, today is definitely our day of highest concern. We have it marked as a critical day, and we do have red flag warnings out for the Cascade zones. And the concern is actually, also extending off to the west with some elevated areas as we get around Puget Sound, Hood Canal, southward down the I-5 corridor. Really a combination of dry and unstable conditions today. We're seeing the RH is already pretty low in some spots and getting some breezy wind, mostly from the east southeast. In a lot of spots, we will see a switch across the western half of the area today, which we'll get more into. But so all of these things coming together make today marks our critical day. With that onshore developing, a little bit more of the moderation starting tomorrow. I say starting because places in the Cascades will still need another day to really moisten up too much and see those better recoveries. But after that, Friday through the end of the week and into the start of next, fortunately, we stay in a typical more onshore pattern, a little bit moister each day, a little bit cooler each day into the weekend. So get through today and tomorrow. We are expecting to see conditions from a fire weather standpoint improve dramatically, but we will get more into the details as we advance.
All right, thank you. All right, go ahead and yes, go ahead and speak to this slide here for the west side.
Perfect. And we'll jump right in here. So as I mentioned, we have the red flag warning out for the Cascade zones. RH is dipping down into the 15 to 25 for most of those areas, maybe some 30% as you get more north into the North Cascades. We will have that unstable air mass. We're pretty well mixed as the day goes on here already, and that'll certainly continue with mixing heights up, 7,000 feet or higher. So really good mixing as we get that thermal trough in place, which will really help us tap into some of that low-level instability, mid-level instability as that thermal trough starts to shift. I do want to say that we do have that elevated area marked, in the I-5 corridor in the south, but even around Hood Canal and even getting into the east side of the Seattle metro area, those could go either way. They were just left out of the elevated, but they're right on the fringe there with the combination of the dry and unstable. With the winds, we're not seeing a lot of wind. A couple spots are picking up some of the winds through the Cascade Gaps, and that's where we indicate mostly 5 to 10 miles per hour through the day today. For the areas that are in the lowlands and away from the gaps, we're going to have that easterly component across most sites early today. The winds don't look to be as strong, and then we will see that shift to a west wind. That's the reason for that elevated yellow area down in the south. Looking at as that shift happens, it will still be quite dry. That the surge of moisture will actually be quite shallow with this initial push. So not a lot of eastward extent, and that will keep some concern with that shifting wind direction as we have very dry conditions this afternoon. So those are the areas we're primarily looking out for, kind of a mixed bag of concerns around the area and a lot of varying degrees of elevated to critical, depending on whether you're in the lowlands or the Cascades. But really today is the primary day of which the concerns are the greatest.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the east side, Friday is our day of most concern. We're going to be looking at a system dropping in from the west and northwest. That's going to bring an increase in winds with minimum relative humidities getting down to between 13 to 20%, and then the west winds becoming breezy with gusts up to 35. Right now, it looks like the best chance of meeting the critical wind RH thresholds will be around the Wenatchee area, the Waterville Plateau, and down along the Snake River area. So we will be taking a closer look at that this afternoon and seeing if we need to put out any fire weather watches. Looking at the satellite image, The system that brought all the winds, or a couple days ago, is now all the way into the central U.S. And here's that next system over central British Columbia. That is going to be helping to shift the winds down the Okanagan Valley into tomorrow. And I believe it's actually another system that's coming down towards Friday. So overall, a fairly active pattern. And looking at this morning's satellite image on the over the area, really the main thing of note is just some hazy skies from some elevated smoke that's out over the Columbia Basin. There's also a little bit of increase in smoke from the Hope Fire that's impacting that area. And also there's that fire there north of the Canadian border that we'll be keeping an eye on smoke production, and also a little smoke plume there on the west side. Matthew, do you have anything you want to add from this satellite image?
Yeah, I'll just add real quick that with that fire getting more active today, especially tapping into some of that extra instability, that plume is making its way across Hood Canal towards the Kitsap Peninsula, and I expect to see that probably expand as the day goes on today. As the flow does turn, that will kind of steer that around, and we could see some of that get trapped towards the lower elevations as if we do stabilize as that onshore push happens, but confidence is low on the specifics of where that smoke will go, but definitely seeing that increased output on satellite already this morning.
All right, thank you. All right, now we'll go to the specific dashboard items, beginning with the hazards. And there's that red flag warning that Seattle has out, as well as some heat advisories there on the west side. Looking at the weather tab, let me go back to day one here. So for today, the temperatures are actually fairly uniform across the whole state. Temperatures in the lower elevations in the 80s to low 90s, except even some hotter values there over southwest Washington. Minimum relative humidity is also dry across the entire state, with minimum values in the teens to mid 20s, and even some 20s showing up there on the west side. And then here's the forecast winds, with locally some enhanced up valley winds for the Okanagan Valley today out of the south. And I'll pass it over to Seattle for anything you want to add for the RHs or winds for today.
Yeah, with the winds today, just really want to indicate that shift in wind for areas near the coastline across the Olympic Peninsula and into the south part of Puget Sound will bring that westerly push, but again, it'll be a little bit slow to moisten up as we get late in the afternoon. It's not going to be a deep marine push immediately, so that shifting direction will be the one thing to look out for. And along the lines of the minimum RH, the main things just to call out here is while these are the official kind of what's in the forecast right now, I wanted to emphasize that for areas Olympia southward and certainly up in the Cascades, Enumclaw in that corridor, as well as around Mount Rainier, values 15 to 20% are going to be the expectation for the min RHs today. Things are already getting quite dry in a lot of spots. So even though you may see these values, if you're consulting our red flag warning or our fire weather planning forecast, you'll see those values are lower. We did make that update this morning.
Okay, sounds good. Moving on to day two. For the temperatures, it looks like there is some cooling there on the west side, but still warm on the east side with 80s and 90s. And then minimum relative humidities continue dry on the east side. And then for the winds, with that system dropping down out of the northwest, we'll see the wind shift out of the north and northwest across the region tomorrow. And these are the peak winds from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., actually up in the late overnight hours into tomorrow morning. We could see gusts even a little stronger than this, around 30 miles per hour, but that will be when the RHs are a little bit higher. All right, so Matthew, what would you like to add for tomorrow's winds, RHs, and temps?
Yeah, really just talking about the trends here. So we see the onshore winds here picking up in general across the area and making that all the way clear to the Cascades, which is a good thing for getting that moisture back up. And as we go back to the minimum relative humidity tab, again, those values, the trends are really what I want to call out here day over day, and seeing those higher values, certainly the coast and as far as around the I-5 corridor, much higher minimum RHs tomorrow, and that will only be the start of the trend. We'll keep trending that way as we'll get to later on, but that's all for now. Thanks.
All right, thanks. All right, we'll move on to day 3 and wanted to highlight, so this is Friday, the day of a potential fire weather watch. We see the winds increasing with gusts in the 25 to 35 range around the Wenatchee area, the Waterville Plateau, and locally down along the Snake River, which is why we highlighted those areas as potentially critical Friday. But again, nothing like what we had back on Monday. And we'll also see some elevated conditions elsewhere. Moving on to Saturday, we see those winds increase even further, although the RHs may be up more on Saturday compared to Friday, which is why we just have elevated for Saturday. And then Sunday, we continue to see some of those elevated breezy winds. Going on the Monday and Tuesday, the thing I want to highlight is the chance for thunderstorms as we see a weather system drop down out of British Columbia. We are looking at the potential for some thunderstorms, and these would be wet storms if we get any going into next week. And the QPF out over the next 7 days, and this is really mainly for that day 6, day 7 time frame, with the potential for some locally wetting rains from thunderstorms as we head into early next week. All right, moving on to the trends, I'll pass it back over to Matthew.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, for today we're going to show Ohana Prakash down near Mount Rainier. And again, just really speak to the temperature and humidity traces over the next couple of days. Today is the hottest and the driest. I will note that, again, we made a couple updates this morning to lower down those RHs. If you looked at our red flag warning compared to what you see on this plot here, we do expect that they'll get down to around that 20% threshold today. But the day over day trend, a little bit cooler, a little bit more humid each day as that onshore flow does continue to be in place, that more persistent layer. With the winds too, not a whole lot to speak of today, although today could see some breezes in the first part of the day and even through the afternoon, maybe more of a northeast or easterly direction, and similar as you go up and down the Cascades. But really, we stay locked in this pattern. Just the moderating trend day over day will be the good news. If we get through today, tomorrow still is on the drier side, as you can see indicated. But after that, the trends really reveal a more seasonal type pattern and less in the way of elevated fire weather concerns once we get past today and tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. We'll move on to Douglas on the Waterville Plateau. Really wanted to highlight those winds for Friday, Saturday, as you can see here, as the windiest day. But those winds will eventually bring in a change towards some cooler temperatures and increased relative humidity. And then moving over to North Idaho, I was going to go ahead and show Hoodoo here. And you can see that for North Idaho, the gradual warming trend through Friday and then cooling down as we go over the weekend and into the first part of next week, as well as a trend towards increased relative humidity and cloud cover. So that will be good news there for the Idaho Panhandle. All right, the 8 to 14 day outlook is calling for around normal temperatures and precipitation, although I did want to show the 6 to 10 day outlook, which is when that early part of next week, where the outlooks right now are favoring some increased odds for cooler than normal temperatures and wetter than normal conditions. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and seeing how that plays out. All right, so that is the end of the fire briefing. Just a reminder, a lot of this information is on our dashboard. So with that, I will stop the recording.